We have received news in the last 24 hours about the death of another Ebola patient here in the United States. This is Dr. Martin Salia, infected with Ebola in his native Sierra Leone, treated at a Nebraska hospital, Nebraska Medical Center, and died yesterday. His doctors said at a news conference that Salia was very, very sick already when he was flown to the United States, and his case illustrated what doctors have been saying for a long time, which is that early treatment matters. And as you remember, the doctor here in the U.S. who started showing symptoms after his return from West Africa went to Bellevue Hospital here in New York City right away upon feeling sluggish and developing a fever. And he was fortunately able to receive treatment that allowed the virus to leave his system. And what's most interesting to me about the coverage around Dr. Martin Salia's death is actually the fact that it's so different than what we were seeing before the election. And a viewer and member, Ryan Conway, sent us this great graphic which illustrates that the coverage of Ebola before the election of 2 weeks ago was completely different than after the election. Before the election, the coverage was a couple of people have Ebola in the US, run for your lives, quarantine everyone, Obama doesn't know what he's doing, and we're all going to die. And all of a sudden, within 24 to 48 hours of that midterm election, prior to it, the coverage really damped down quite a bit. And since, we have seen none of the fear-mongering coverage. And even now that we had a person with Ebola in the U.S., many people didn't even know this man was here, Lewis, because the media coverage has not only been not fear-mongering, but it's been just very infrequent with regard to Ebola.
Right. And with the fear-mongering earlier, every time there was a new case with the couple of doctors that contracted it from patients they were treating, it was as if 1,000 people had contracted the virus. And it's really just paranoia and panic. And when the media backs off just a little bit, this is what happens.
And look at the tone of the coverage that we saw during the treatment of and subsequent death of Dr. Martin Salia, which it's just as tragic as every other Ebola death. It was in the U.S., but the coverage was, hey, there's an isolated patient in Nebraska. Medical professionals have this under control. We're not all going to die. Everything is calm. And it makes me wonder, was the Ebola fear-mongering panic prior to the election, was it caused or in any way pushed ahead by a Republican desire to paint Obama as guilty of something with regard to Ebola, and the need for that has now disappeared? Was it a corporate media that had a desire to do it then, and now the desire to fearmonger has gone away? What do you think caused this?
I think that was the news. I think that the media wanted the hits, the ratings, the views, and that was the way to get it. I think the election just stole the spotlight from Ebola, and I think it's that simple, really. Now, what are we going to focus on? Whatever the next thing is, maybe Ebola will come back.